One of the worst man-made humanitarian crises in the world Yemen faces is caused due to impunity, which encourages the conflicting parties to intensify their violations. Conditions of detention across Yemen are appalling. Yemeni civilians are dreaming of obtaining their stolen freedom, and families are struggling to find relatives who have disappeared across the country. Parties to the conflict continue to arbitrarily detain, forcibly disappear, torture, and subject people to cruel, inhumane, and degrading treatment, which sometimes ends with death in detention centers. Such violations and crimes inflict indelible scars on individuals, families, and a Yemeni's memory. I was taken from my home at dawn by Houthi armed men who took me to Al Salah city, throwing me directly into the pressure cooker. In a completely closed cell, our numbers ranged between 4 to 12 detainees. The cell did not even have a nail hole for air and light to pass through. A corner was designated as a bathroom. I couldn't eat because the place was so filthy. After midnight on the 27th night of detention in the pressure cooker, they blindfolded me and took me out of the cell to interrogate me for the first time since my detention. The interrogation lasted for 3 hours. I was forced to place my fingerprint on papers without knowing their content. After that, I was then transferred to another cell called Majlis, where I spent 99 days in severe cold, hunger, and thirst, not to mention psychological torture. A day felt like a year, and the feeling of injustice is very bitter. Military vehicles detained Salim from one of the markets in Marib Governorate. Then they transferred him to political security prison. A former detainee says he was kept hanging from a rope tied to his legs, and the soldiers beat him with a whip. His body had signs of torture on his hands and feet. Other detainees requested medications and medical supplies for Salim, but the prison officials refused. His family was asked to collect his body from Al Thawra Hospital in Marib, more than a year and a half after his initial detention. Five vehicles belonging to the security belt of the UAE-backed Southern Transitional Council surrounded the house of Yahya. They blindfolded him, beat him, and kicked him. His house was stormed, and he was taken to the October 7 prison. Yahya's body was found in the courtyard of Al Razi Hospital in Ja'ar area in Abiyan Governorate. Yahya's corpse had signs of torture, a rope hanging around his neck, and the fingernails and toenails removed. Muatana for Human Rights calls on all parties to the conflict to immediately halt the practice of enforced disappearance, arbitrary arrest and detention, and the use of torture and other forms of cruel, inhumane, and degrading treatment. All those involved in these crimes and violations are to be held accountable and provide redress to their victims.